The Russian Federation will not accept terrorism in any shape or form. We categorically condemned attacks on civilians in Israel, which occurred on the 7th of October 2023. We categorically repudiate the wholly unjustified aggression against Yemen, an aggression waged by the US and the UK without Council approval. Political assassinations must end. Northern Gaza has been practically entirely destroyed. It's practically uninhabitable. 80% of people in the Gaza Strip are IDPs. It's a true humanitarian tragedy, and there's no end in sight. There are shortages of all basic essentials on an abhorrent scale. I'd also like to draw your attention to a Jerusalem Post article dated 5th January 2024. It was penned by a professor from Ben Gurion University, Ms. Meksan. She previously worked as a coordinator at the WHO, focusing on emergencies. The article draws on assessments from environmental experts, including Israeli experts. And according to these assessments, there are doubts that Gaza will be inhabitable one day after the conflict ends as a result of the bombardments, the soil, the subsoil, coastal waters, the air. All of them have been polluted on an unprecedented scale by the bombardments, by the chemicals that have been released, by the biomass, which is now rotting, as awful as that sounds, as well as other waste and sewage. The Council's inability to take exhaustive measures means that the current escalation of the conflict in Palestine has metastasized across the region. Again, not without the nefarious participation of the US and their allies. Their military presence in the Middle East, just like in other parts of Eurasia, is creating new unacceptable risks to international security. We categorically repudiate the wholly unjustified aggression against Yemen, an aggression waged by the US and the UK without Council approval. Their actions are a direct threat to international peace. They're undermining a world order that's based not on the Anglo-Saxons' rules, but on international law, with the UN playing a central role. We also condemn Israel's strikes on Syria. In particular, strikes, the stated targets of which are bodies that are legally operating in Syria. In fact, they were invited by the government. Political assassinations must end. The situation on the Israeli-Lebanese border is also particularly dangerous. This only serves to exacerbate the very difficult situation in the region. It's already dire, and it didn't begin yesterday. It began many, many years ago. What we're referring to are repeated invasions by the US and their satellites in independent states, which resulted in hundreds of thousands of lives lost in Iraq, the destruction of Libyan statehood, the war in Syria, massive refugee flows, and an unprecedented rise in international terrorism. The Russian Federation will not accept terrorism in any shape or form. We categorically condemned attacks on civilians in Israel, which occurred on the 7th of October 2023. In contrast to our Western colleagues who practice double standards, we don't divide extremists into good guys and bad guys, into us and them. Palestinians should decide for themselves what their future state will look like, who will govern, and how they will govern in that state. I think that's what our Western colleagues call democracy. Decisions imposed by external forces and our Western colleagues' cherished social engineering are categorically unacceptable. And some delegations deemed it acceptable to rattle off accusations leveled at the Russian Federation because we are conducting a special military operation to combat Nazism in Kiev. Your conscience is very heavy, weighed down by these statements, but that's your problem. However, let us underscore that we cannot bury the idea of Palestinian statehood, just like we buried the Minsk agreements dated 2015. The guarantors of those agreements were France and Germany. Subsequently, France and Germany admitted that they didn't even think that they would implement them. We cannot accept such illegal actions to be taken vis-à-vis the Palestinian people. Thank you.